today today is a systems thinking. So this is a workshop on understanding systems thinking through sustainability. And in this, we have very short time. We have only 1 hour, but we'll try to understand one very important thing: what exactly is systems thinking and how do we work around that. And second is, if you want to understand sustainability, so how do we use systems thinking for that, right? And while I was going through the Rise World Summit, so I could get this one sentence over there, which is systems thinking can help us to create more sustainable and inclusive solutions that address the root causes of problems rather than the symptoms. I have highlighted 3 words over here, as you can see: sustainable, root causes, and symptoms. So it's very important that if we want to understand sustainability, what is sustainable and what is not, we need to understand the problems at root cause, what exactly causing these problems, and not only just symptoms. So that is very important when we talk about systems thinking and sustainability in the perspective. So today we are going to look that only. But before starting, I would like to start with one game, one activity for you all, and it will take just 2 minutes. The activity is called as Game of Triangles. So on the screen you can see this figure. Just you need to count the number of triangles in this figure. So there are 9 small triangles, but you have to calculate how many total unique triangles are there. Can I get some of the answers from you? How many triangles are there? You can use chat or you can unmute and speak. That's fine. How many triangles are there? You have 1 minute to answer this. Okay. How many triangles are there? Okay, so I got one answer. You can just check the number of triangles over there. So I'll just quickly share the answer also because we don't have that much time. But definitely, if you count these triangles, so the total number will be 13 different triangles. So that question would be how? So this is how you will get 13 triangles. These small 9 triangles: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and these 3 triangles make 1, this 2, this 3, and the bigger one, that is 4. So 9 plus 4, these are the 13 triangles that we have over here. Now we have one interesting question, that if is the lines that form the one smallest triangle, so out of that 9 triangle, if you remove the one triangle, then how many of the 13 triangle will be left for us? So it becomes interesting. If you remove one of the triangle, the answer is not 12 triangles. As you can see, because they are connected with each other and you cannot reduce only one triangle. The reason being, if you try to remove any one triangle, you can just see. So let's say I want to remove this triangle. Okay. So if this triangle is gone, these 3 lines will be gone, right? So this will ultimately impact this one triangle has gone, this second triangle, the smaller triangle, that is also gone, this triangle is also gone, and the larger triangle is also gone. So depending on which triangle you're removing, so maybe the side triangle or maybe the central triangle, you will remove ultimately 3 to 5 other triangles. So this is very similar to the species as well. So species are also connected with each other like these small triangles, and you cannot remove only one. If you remove one, there will be multiple triangles that get removed, multiple species that get removed. So why I conducted this activity at the initial part of this workshop is, it is very similar to what happens in systems. We need to understand different elements and we need to understand the interrelationships. So this is one discussion regarding biodiversity and how these different elements are connected with each other. If you see the food web on the screen, these are the multiple questions that we can ask, and for which it's systems approach that we need to take into account. So I'll take some real problem with us for discussion. Okay. So question number one is, there are number of problems around us, and how do we solve these problems? How do we learn and how do we evolve? So that is one question, right? So as you can see, a best way to learn is, this has been proven from say past 100 years experience for us. Take it apart and find out what it was made up of. So this approach has been quite successful, particularly in biology or chemistry or physics. So whatever concepts, whatever applications that you can see, whatever science that has been developed, most of the development occurred because of this approach, taking it, dividing it multiple parts, or finding out what it is made up of, and then you'll get to know about it. So this is called as reductionism, right? The idea that something is nothing but sum of its parts. But it has been useful till this time. But as any good thing, if you overdo it, that will not become beneficial, right? The same thing happened with the reductionism as well. As you can see on the screen, so let's say if this is a car and it is made up of multiple systems like let's say engine, right? Engine is a complete system, then braking system, right? Then suspension system. There are multiple systems that come into together, and the reductionism approach is something that we divide this, we study the individual part, and if we do it, then we will understand the entire part, entire system. So that is a conventional wisdom, conventional knowledge that we have with systems thinking, with conventional reductionist approach. But here one thing we are missing is, and that is the wholeness of system, and that is something which is very important. Here I would like to share this one small riddle from 5th century Indian text. So there is a question, precisely where is what we called as chariot located? Is it in axles or wheels, the frame, or is it the poles that connect the horse? So this is a question that was asked in 5th century Indian text, and the answer is nowhere. The chariot is not at any one place of this. It's not at axle, it's not at wheel, right? Whenever we call the term chariot, it refers to the temporary arrangement of its component parts. So it's a system, right? So every such object breaks down into multiple of its parts and its constituent processes that made them, and the entire they interacting with each other create a system, and that is, if we consider that as a whole, that is a systems thinking or system dynamics that we take into account. So why today I have integrated sustainability into systems thinking is because I happen to came across systems thinking with sustainability, studying sustainability, sustainable development, and that's how I came to know about system dynamics, systems thinking, and I studied about it. So today I'll focus more on sustainability, and with that lens, how we can understand systems thinking. Right. So, in short, I'll just explain some of the important concepts of system and systems thinking, and then we will try to understand the different practical questions, how to address them. So, in short, a system is a set of element or part that are coherently organized and interconnected in a way that produces a characteristic set of behavior, and often called as a function or the purpose. So from this definition, there are three important parts a system made up of, right? First is the elements, multiple elements coming together, they interact with each other. And third is, there is a clear function or purpose of the system. For example, if we take the digestive system, as you can see on the screen, so there are multiple elements, right? So maybe teeth or enzymes, stomach or intestines. These are multiple elements or organs that we have. They are interrelated through a physical flow of food and through a set of regulating chemical signals. But they have a function, right? And what is the function? It is to break down the food into its basic nutrients and to transfer those nutrients into bloodstream. That is the another system that we as human beings have while discarding unusable waste. So this is one example of system, and here you can see that one system can have multiple systems as well. So there are multiple levels of system as well, right? So a system can have a subsystem, or a system can have other system as well. So on the screen, as you can see, let's say if we start from an individual as you and me, right? So we are made up of multiple systems like nervous system. If we take one example, then it is made up of brain. Brain is made up of brain cell. It is made up of cell nucleus. In this way, we can go downward or we can go upward. That many individuals make community, many communities make a state, many states make a nation. So in this way, we can go up to galaxy as well. So each of these, as you can see, system is consisting of multiple subsystems, right? So that is one defining feature of system, and we need to identify where exactly we are focusing on. So that will depend on our purpose of the study, right? Then there are some important concepts when we study systems. These are, first is feedback loop. Okay, so as we were talking about multiple elements interacting with each other, so there comes a feedback which is very important for a system to function. So this is a mechanism, a rule or information flow or signal that allows a change in a stock to affect a flow. I'll not read the entire definition, but it's simply whatever feedback is given from the output to the input, and that's how the function of the system is achieved, right? So that loop is called as feedback loop. Then second, it's an archetype. So these are the common system structure, and when we see this kind of feedback loop, we can identify that there are some common type of systems or common type of structures that are appearing again and again. This is same kind of behavior that is happening again and again. So that is archetype. And the last, which is important, which is unintended consequences. Many times it happens that we design an intervention for one particular purpose, but unfortunately we couldn't see the unintended negative outcomes from that. So these are called as unintended consequences. So these are important definitions when we talk about systems thinking, and I'll give some of the examples in next slides as well. So when we talk about feedback loop, as a definition we have seen over here. So what is a feedback loop? So maybe there are multiple elements that are interacting in a system, as we talked about. Just a small example. Us in systems thinking, you can see this kind of complex maps, right? So here I'll just explain the 2 points and then we can move ahead. So just to elaborate how systems and how these different loops we can interpret. So let's say if we just take these 2 points, let's say number of cars on road or number of cars in city and the congestion. As you can see that if there are more number of cars, then definitely the congestion would be more, right? So there is a positive correlation. Increase in number of cars will increase in the congestion on road. That will increase the commute time. So in this way, as you can see, multiple elements that are interacting with each other. And when we study this behavior, when we study this pattern, understand how they are interacting with each other with the goal of a system, it's called as systems thinking in short, right? So we have seen this system and subsystem. So let's talk about systems thinking. So I have given 2 definitions over here. So we can call it as a conceptual framework, right? Or a body of knowledge or tools that has been developed to make full patterns clearer and to help us see how to change them effectively, right? Or it is a discipline for seeing structures that underlie the complex situations and for discerning high from low leverage change. So one thing is very common over here, which is that we discussed at the start, the problems and the learning. The problem in the sense, how do we identify different problems and how do we learn to provide a solution, right? So that's very important. And in this sense, systems thinking is really important to understand what exactly happening over there. So understanding the root cause and providing a proper solution, this is possible because of systems thinking, right? So there are two kind of viewpoint we can say. One is a regular or linear viewpoint, and second is a systems viewpoint, right? So linear viewpoint is generally event based, as you can see in the news, right? So news is a one time event that you see or read in newspaper and gone. But if you study the dynamic pattern, so whether there is a pattern of similar behavior, then it becomes a systems viewpoint, right? So now you are trying to understand different elements, how they are interacting, and why this particular kind of behavior is there, then it is a systems viewpoint. So as we have seen, so there are three important parts of system, different elements, the relationship between them, how they interacting with each other, and that's how the feedback is generated. And third, there is a particular goal of the system that the entire system is trying to accomplish, right? And this can be understood with different ways. So like for elements there is talk and flow diagram, relationship, or for feedback it's causal loop diagram, right? And for the goal, you can see all these interactions, all these feedbacks are showing you there is some goal. Sometimes the goal is implicit, you cannot see it, but there is a particular goal for the entire system to work, right? And this is one quote from Donella Meadows from her book Thinking in Systems. If you understand the dynamics of stocks and flows, their behavior over time. So dynamics is behavior over time. You understand a good deal about the behavior of complex systems. And if you had much experience with bathtub, you understand the dynamics of stocks and flows. So this is very common example to simplify the systems thinking or system dynamics. And it's nothing but, let's say if there is a bathtub, there is a in, there is out. Okay, so if there is a bathtub, there is inlet, there is outlet, and as you can see, so there is a water level, right? So with this one example, you can understand. So here stock is this water level, okay, and the flow is the effective flow, the inlet and outlet. And by drawing this interaction, you can derive some very common understanding, like if this is, let's say, full, and if your goal is, let's say you want to keep this bathtub or you want to keep this bathtub as 50%, so this can be a goal of the system, and that's how you will operate these taps for inlet and outlet, right? So this kind of behavior becomes very easier to understand with systems thinking and the causal loop diagram and feedback loops. Okay, so one benefit that with respect to systems thinking is when you try to understand the different elements and how they are interacting with each other, you are not uh, keeping the responsibility for only one person. For example, it's very easier in a linear our viewpoint that looking for someone or something to be responsible, right? So if there is a fault, so we try to identify who is at fault. We we generally forget the system over there which is causing that behavior, right? So that's how a system viewpoint is sharing the responsibility with everyone. That's one outcome, and which is very beneficial in learning and improving the systems. Now let's come back to sustainability. So I want to explain some of the sustainability points, and that's how we can understand why systems thinking is important, right? So this is from a graph, one book called as Limits to Growth. This was a report published in 1972 by Dennis Meadows and Donella Meadows to Club of Rome. So this was one of the most popular book or report which has enhanced the understanding of sustainability and the practical implementation of systems thinking for the complex problems. So as you can see on the screen, on x-axis there is a time and on y-axis there is a space. So we are talking about the nature of problems that we all have, right? Generally, if we talk about most of the people, their problems will be in the bottom left quadrant over here. And how is it so? So on the time on x-axis, you can see towards the left, it is about the imminent future. So maybe next few days or maybe next few weeks, okay, next few years. And then when we go to the right, it is about lifetime or 40, 50 years or 100 years or 200 years towards children's lifetime. And on y-axis, it is space. Whoever is near to us, maybe family or our society, neighborhood, then maybe our race, nation, and then the world or the universe. We can go up the things, the people who are away from us with space. For most of us, our problems are bottom left. So what will happen to me and people who are nearer to me, right? And let's say what will happen in next few weeks or next few months. So that's how we think about the problems, right? For most of us. But for world leaders, we can say their space expands and their time also expands, right? So sustainability is nothing but it is having a global perspective. So expanding your boundary towards world and also which extends into future. So extending our concern for problems towards, let's say, people who are living away from us, who are not, we cannot, let's say, uh, if we understand entire world as a system, so maybe our action might have the negative repercussions on the people whom we haven't met, right? So they may be people of, let's say, living on some island. That's possible. But our actions can impact them as well. So understanding this, working for that, and at the same time, working for intergenerational equity that we call, right? So we are not only thinking about our own life, but we are also thinking about our children's lifetime. What will happen? How are we conserving resources for them? How are we keeping the livable planet for them, for their survival? So this is something sustainability in a simple language, right? So shifting our focus from bottom left to top right quadrant, this is all about systems thinking, right? So this is with problems perspective. And this is a definition with our common future. As you can see, this is very famous definition published in the report Brundtland report. The development that meets the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, as you might know. Now the problem is, when we say that we want to achieve such development which the future generations can also meet their own needs, right? So in this way we want to do it. But the major problem is, with our linear thinking, with our reductionist approach, we are not able to understand the entire elements and how they are interacting with each other. For example, as you can see on the screen, these are the three pillars of sustainability that we call, or three P's of sustainability. Maybe profit, people, planet, or economic, social, and environmental. So sustainability is something when we achieve all these three. For example, we, let's say, for sustainability, we cannot say that we are achieving the economic profit. For example, let's say if we take a village, right? So if all the people are getting, let's say, minimum wage or the livelihoods, as we call it, for economic, right, for profit, they are getting their livelihoods, but at the same time they are harming the environment, right? And if we consider a village as a closed system, we can be sure that harming the environment, taking out more resources from the environment than the carrying capacity of that particular region, this economic profit will not last long, right? So maybe this generation will take out the resources, but the next generation will not, right? And there are many examples that such kind of destruction happened and the entire economic activity have been impacted due to it, right? At the same time, if you are thinking that okay, economic is good, environment also we are taking care, but socially we are not, then again it is problem. It is not long-term thinking, right? Somehow all these three elements are interrelated with each other, and systems thinking is a way to appreciate this interaction. Generally what happens, this interaction is not visible to us because maybe it is out of our sight, or maybe it is let's say after few years or after few decades, so we tend to neglect it because we cannot appreciate that kind of consequences in far into the future, and that's human nature. But systems thinking will give us a tool to identify how it is happening, to make sure that we can visualize these entire processes, and that's how we can understand the exact root cause and we can provide a solution. So that's one of the beauty of systems thinking. Okay, now, so if we are talking about systems thinking, what is our learning from this particular viewpoint? First is systems are interconnected and interdependent, so that is one thing that we will get. Second, systems adapt and change, so we can change the system. Systems have cycles, right? Systems require energy. Systems have parts that work together, or maybe we can call it subsystem. Systems can break, systems can be natural or human made, systems can be changed by people. So all these statements we can make about systems, right? To understand it, this pyramid, as you can see, we can talk about three things. First is essence, right? So when we talk about systems thinking, we are talking about the holism. So the concept of whole, right? So let's say a system comprising of different elements, and in reductionist approach we are just disintegrated that entire system and understanding the individual elements only. We are not understanding the entire whole, how they are functioning, right? So it is concept of synergy and the interconnectedness. So these are very important. These are the essence of systems thinking. And what are the principles? So it is structure influences behavior, right? So here we are not saying that only one person is responsible for the particular behavior. That's not there always, right? Many times in organizations, it happens that for a particular behavior we happen to criticize a person, or in our daily lives as well, we can appreciate that we criticize person for the mistakes, right? And that's not proper. Actually there are some intrinsic structures that are influencing that particular behavior, and that we can understand with systems thinking. Then policy resistance. So why and there is one feedback loop concept as well, so I'll just quickly explain that to you in next slide. But let's say if we are having some policy for sustainable development, but there is some resistance from the system, so maybe there is some balancing feedback loop that is happening, means there is an internal resistance from the system, and unless and until we understand that, we cannot provide a solution which will have a long term or sustainable solution. That's there. And the concept of leverage is something where exactly we should focus, we should have our efforts to bring about change. So these are the three principles of systems thinking. And if you ask how exactly that is to be done, one is with system archetypes. So there are some models of behavior. We can archetype that. We can categorize them under different archetypes, because it's not possible to understand every system separately, right? But there are some common behaviors. We can categorize it with multiple system archetypes. We can understand it, we can study it, and then we can correlate it with the real world problems that we have. And the next is simulation models that we have. So in this way, systems thinking in its entirety, with a concept of holism, understanding the entire whole, and appreciating the different elements interaction with respect to the goal of the system. So that's how we can understand the systems thinking. Okay. Now, to make sure that you also get it, what I talked about this archetype and what I talked about the feedback loop. So I have taken this one example. So let's understand one balancing feedback loop. I'm sure all of you might have learned bicycle, right? When you were maybe 8 or 10 years old. So one thing is very clear that when you are riding the bicycle, we are not always at the center, right? We are not always at the balancing. So maybe sometime we are on the right side, right? So we are leaning towards right, and then we balance our weight, right? Then we go to the left. Then again we balance our weight. And that's how we learn to balance or ride the bicycle, right? So as you can also share your experience, when you are riding a bicycle, you are constantly making small adjustments based on the feedback, right? So maybe you are getting information about where you are going, then it gets input to the brain, then to the muscles, then to the bicycle, and then again output, and this information loops, it's continuous loop, and that's how we balance it, right? And again, second example you can take as when we feel thirsty, right? So maybe we can have a stock as water content in our body. When that's get lower, we get thirsty, we get thirst, then we take water, and if we take water, then the water content will also increase and the thirst will reduce, right? So more the thirst, the more water you will take, the more water you have, right? So more water content will be there, and the more water content is your body, the thirst will be less, right? So this is a balancing feedback loop that we have in our body. Same way with let's say if our body temperature increases, how the temperature of the body remains at constant homeostasis. So that's also one of the feedback loop that we have in our body. Okay? And second, one very important concept about systems is, and this is particularly important with sustainability. So let's see, we have a problem. Okay, uh, you can take any problem for that matter, right? So as a society or as a nation, we can take one problem. Okay, so maybe I remember around 20-30 years back, there was this problem, and I read it in one of the reports. So let's say there is a problem of ethanol. Okay, so we want to produce ethanol from sugarcane. That is a problem, and that's how. Let's say the fix is we are promoting ethanol production, and that's how this is a fix. This is working, and this is a feedback loop that's get completed. But after delay, there is a problem that maybe more people are focusing on ethanol production, and that's how the sugar production might get reduced, or there might be unintended consequences, and that has happened. So for example, there is another example, the cobra effect that you can see, which is also unintended consequences. So the meaning is a well-intentioned measure can often backfire and have the opposite effect to the intended. So that is the unintended. So you haven't imagined that at the start of the policy or the intervention. So let's say uh, there is one area. Okay, so let's say there is one village where your intention is to reduce the cobra population or to reduce the snake population. So that is the intent that you have. And what you have done is, so you have, as a policy, as a government, you are incentivizing whoever brings dead cobra or dead snakes, they get cash reward. So let's say cash reward of 5,000 rupees or something that government has announced. This is a bounty for dead cobras, but it will work for a small period of time. But afterwards, what will happen? People will start the cobra farming, and this has happened actually as well. So actually, your intention was to reduce the cobra population, but unintentionally, over the longer period of time, people will have a cobra farming, and ultimately the population of cobra will be more. So that's how the unintended consequences happen. And with systems thinking, there is a concept of delay while we understand these different elements with this feedback loop. So this, when we also plot it and when we try to imagine what will happen over a period of time, okay, and what are the different elements, other elements that are interacting with this. So maybe here the impact will be other economic incentives that are happening over there, that are available over there. So they are also interacting with this one policy, and that's how the unintended consequences are coming out from this implementation. So these are some of the archetypes that we have. There are many, and for most of the content that I have shown you today for this workshop, these are from Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. This is a wonderful book. Then second is An Introduction to Systems Thinking by Kaufman. Okay, so this is one of the book for beginners in systems thinking. The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge, and The Systems Thinking for Effective Manager by Prasoon Datta. So these are some of the books that I particularly find interesting to learn about systems thinking. And at the end, I would like to say that systems thinking is essential to understand the complex systems and provide a sustainable solution. This is something that we can understand, and the reason being, whatever sustainable solution that we have, we are talking about long term, right? We are not talking about quick fixes. So when we talk about long term solutions or the solutions that are solving the problem from root cause, then systems thinking is important. Systems thinking as at its core, because then only you can understand how different elements are interacting, and how the goal of the entire system, how the function of the entire system, that is also impacting. And I guess in the morning session we had seen that we had also discussion about the tip of the iceberg, right? So whenever we are understanding a system, the visible part is very small, but there are many 90% part is invisible, right? 80%, 90% is invisible, and that's what is happening with systems thinking. If we try to understand all these different elements, how they interact with each other, then we get more clarity. And once we have a proper mind map, once we have a proper maybe understanding of the exact issue, exact problem, then we can provide proper solution, and it will be a long-term solution. That's why it's a sustainable solution, to say. Yes. So thank you so much everyone for joining, and